Ever thought about hopping back to the past or peeking into the future? While many dismiss time travel as mere fiction, a select group of scientists and thinkers out there are trying to turn this dream into reality. From secret experiments to bold theories, the quest to break the time barrier is more alive than ever. Curious about who's leading the charge and how close we might be to taking a leap? Let's journey into the world of real-life time travel experiments and discover the unexpected. Number 1. Kozyrev mirrors. Experiment. Kozyrev mirrors are a fascinating topic that delves into the realm of time travel. The concept was brought to light by Russian scientist Nikolai Kozyrev, who conducted a series of experiments to prove that moving from the future to the past was possible. He based his views on hypotheses about instantaneous information spreading through physical features of time. In his experiments, Kozyrev used a mirror that was capable of bending almost anything, including microwave waves, lasers, ultraviolet rays, and even particles from space. The mirror was designed in such a way that, depending on the mixture of substances and metals in it, it could determine what it was going to bend. According to the laws of physics, Kozyrev believed that this mirror could even bend time at the microscopic level, and he claimed that through it he could see the future 10 seconds before everyone else. The experiment was considered a state secret of the USSR. Kozyrev said that if a person entered a capsule whose interior was completely covered with this type of mirror, the individual's time would begin to go faster. Unfortunately, Kozyrev died under unexplained circumstances just before the completion of the experiment. Some believe that he was killed because he had a special talent like Nikola Tesla, or perhaps it was the laws of nature itself, so that man cannot advance more than he is allowed. Other scientists have also explored the concept of Kozyrev mirrors. In a documentary by a channel called The Y-Files, it was reported that 2 Russian scientists performed experiments using a piece of sheet metal bent into the form of the Fibonacci spiral. A person would sit within this structure, and various phenomena were reported, including UFO sightings in the surrounding area, ESP, the ability to send remote visualization messages, and time alteration. Number 2. The Philadelphia Experiment. Do you know that the notorious Philadelphia Experiment, as the legend goes, was not just a test of invisibility, but also an accidental foray into time travel? The story goes that in the fall of 1943, the U.S. Navy conducted a top-secret experiment at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The goal was ambitious, if not outright fantastical, to render the destroyer escort USS Eldridge invisible to enemy detection. But as the tale unfolds, the experiment allegedly veered off into the realms of the paranormal, with claims of the ship not just becoming invisible but also teleporting over 200 miles away to Norfolk, Virginia, and then reappearing back in Philadelphia. The origins of this incredible story trace back to a man named Carl M. Allen, who, under the pseudonym Carlos Miguel Allende, sent a series of letters to the author Morris K. Jessup in the 1950s. These letters contained an account of the supposed experiment, suggesting that the Navy had harnessed the principles of Einstein's unified field theory to achieve the impossible. According to Allen, the experiment had catastrophic results. Sailors were said to have suffered from a range of bizarre and severe side effects. Despite the fantastical nature of the story, the U.S. Navy has consistently denied that the Philadelphia experiment ever took place. Their position is that the details of the story contradict well-established facts about the USS Eldridge, and that the supposed scientific principles behind the experiment are pure fiction. However, the Navy's denials have done little to quell the speculation and intrigue surrounding the event. Over the years, the story has been embellished and expanded upon, with new elements and supposed eyewitnesses adding layers to the narrative. One of the most notable expansions of the story came from a man named Alfred Bielek in the 1980s, who claimed to have been aboard the USS Eldridge during the experiment. Bielek's accounts, which he shared at conferences and on radio shows, introduced new, even more extraordinary elements to the tale, including time travel. According to Bielek, the experiment had not only achieved invisibility and teleportation, but had also unlocked the ability to traverse time itself. Stories of crew members going insane or suffering from a condition described as frozen in time, where they would phase in and out of visibility, suggest that their very existence had become a temporal anomaly. Albeit, the notion that the human body and consciousness could be subjected to the whims of a disrupted time-space continuum is a concept straight out of science fiction. Number 3. The Montauk Project. Next up is the Montauk Project, yet another name that's been floating around conspiracy theory circles for years. It's a story that involves secret government experiments, time travel, and even psychological warfare. The project supposedly took place at Montauk Air Force Base at the eastern tip of Long Island, New York. The base was decommissioned and turned into a wildlife refuge, but according to theorists, the underground facilities remained the property of the Air Force and were used for these secret experiments. The project project is said to have started sometime in the 1950s, following the Philadelphia experiment. Researchers from that project began discussing the possibility of continuing their work, focusing on manipulating electromagnetic fields. They presented a report to Congress, which was rejected for being too dangerous. However, the Department of Defense approved it, and funding came from various sources, including Nazi gold recovered by U.S. soldiers. The experiments began in earnest in the early 1970s. The facility was expanded to include as many as 12 levels and several hundred workers. The project was so secretive that even the tons of building materials and the hundreds of workers required for the expansion went unnoticed by the local community. The experiments conducted were varied and numerous. Homeless people were allegedly abducted and subjected to massive amounts of electromagnetic radiation. Few survived. Some reports even claim that people had their psychic abilities enhanced to the point where they could materialize objects out of thin air. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Montauk project is the claim that a porthole in time was created. This allowed researchers to alter history with visits to historical figures, and even alter the outcomes of major battles in the American Civil War and World War II. The project also delved into mind control, with the aim of creating a weapon that could induce symptoms of schizophrenia at the touch of a button. The Montauk project has been the subject of numerous books and documentaries, and it even inspired the popular Netflix series Stranger Things. However, the U.S. government has staunchly denied any research described in these accounts occurred at either Camp Hero or the Montauk Air Force Station. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the Montauk project continues to be a topic of discussion and speculation, leaving many to wonder what really happened in the underground facilities at Montauk. Number 4. NASA's time dilation experiments. Time dilation is a concept from Einstein's theory of relativity and suggests that time can move at different rates depending on how fast you're moving compared to something else. This means that if you were traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light, time would appear to move slower for you than for someone who is stationary. NASA has conducted various experiments to test and observe this phenomenon, many of which have involved astronauts on the International Space Station, ISS. The ISS orbits the Earth at a speed of about 28,000 kilometers per hour. Because of this high speed, astronauts on the ISS experience time slightly differently than we do on Earth. In one experiment, NASA compared two identical atomic clocks, one on Earth and one on the ISS. After some time, they found that the clock on the ISS was slightly behind the one on Earth. This difference was tiny, just a few milliseconds, but it was consistent with the predictions of Einstein's theory. Another experiment involved twin astronauts, Scott and Mark Kelly. Scott spent a year in space while Mark stayed on Earth. When Scott returned, they compared their biological data. While the differences were minimal, they did find slight variations in their DNA, which could be attributed to the effects of time dilation and the harsh environment of space. These experiments by NASA provide real-world evidence of time dilation. They show that time can indeed move at different rates depending on your relative speed. While the effects are minimal at the speeds we currently achieve in space, they become more pronounced as we approach the speed of light. This has implications for future space travel, especially long-duration missions to distant planets or stars. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. See you next time.